Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Stories Around Azeroth. I am Pete Titans Creed Nethercoat, and joining me as always is the most lovable gnome this side of the Eastern Kingdoms, the one and only Mr. Frazley. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great. Wow, that just makes me... Wow. No one ever said that to me before.
I say it about you every week.
I know. It just makes it warms my heart. And I always enjoy talking with you. Because you are always a fun person to chat with.
Not many people say that about me. You're going to make me blush. But yes, we are back. It's been an interesting week. It's World Quest week in Azeroth. So everybody out there is grinding reps on their ults and everything else. It's what I'm doing. I've spent most of my week trying to get the Zandalari to Exalted because I want to unlock those Zandalari trolls. What have you been doing this week in the world of Warcraft, my friend?
The same thing. I got my Genome Project Gnome with Michael up to 50, so that's a milestone. We've been doing that since January. But other than that, pretty much just doing the World Quest. I got the war campaign done on my Horde, so that way I am ready to get onto the Tide of Vengeance to get the Wolf on the Alliance side. Now, I made a discovery this week. So a lot of the Alliance want the Wolf, but very few people are on the Horde. Yeah, because they're all like, hey, do you want the horse? Nay.
Terrible individual. I'll tell you one thing I have been doing in my spare time is I've been going on the pet hunts, which means I've got to go back through Wrath, Cataclysm and Mist raids to try and get the pet drops. Not had much luck, but I have started leveling my gnome. I think we talked about this briefly last week.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I want to get ready for 8.2 and having a gnome heritage armor ready. So I've equipped my tabard. I've gone protection. Oh, protection warrior is fun in dungeons. I tell you, it's so much fun. I think I've died like twice so far because of bad healers. Because I could literally do the same packs day in day out with different healers, and it's only the priest ones that let me die because they're like, I could just do damage. So it's interesting, but yeah, that's been fun. I completely forgot about the obviously opening story of Gnomeregan and everything else. So that was a little bit interesting.
And if we go like a few episodes, I still have this crazy notion that Gnomeregan has something to do with what's coming. That there's some weapon in Gnomeregan. I've had this theory since 7.3. I thought it was going to be for taking down the Legion. But Gnomeregan has something to do with what's going on.
Nobody's done the Gnome Heritage Quest, have they? Like,
yeah.
So surely it must be the culmination of going into Gnomeregan and doing that then. Yeah.
And thankfully Gnomeregan's not as long as in Classic. That was a awful quest.
Oh, it is just as long. No, Gnomeregan now is the same length as Gnomeregan in Classic.
Maybe it just took more time.
It did take more time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you didn't have the dungeon quest, which gave you the parachute to jump down. So you had to rely on having slow fall or levitate or something like that.
Yes. And even now I still get the parachute and I will end up dying.
I just jump down as a gnome warrior. I just heroic leap down and just go pull something and just go fight it off to the death. Kappa says no gnomes are good gnomes. Haha.
They want to
exterminate.
Well, if he's not careful, they will cause an uprising and they will show him no mercy.
Exactly.
That's it. What an interesting week. There's not really been a lot. Like, normally we have a big story to tell or something like that. Hopefully next week I'll have the Zandalari one. I'll tell you what, Mr. Frazley, since you're on the Tides of Vengeance chain, how have you found, now that you've done the normal 8.0 story for the war campaign, how have you found the opposite side of that in comparison to the Alliance side?
They're different. I don't want to say one's better or worse. They give you different views of it. Like, I like seeing like where we're trying to get the Zandalari fleet going, and like you see like One Somnity and he's so cool. Like I think we talked about like that deal with the death and all that. So it is adding into different parts of the story, and I definitely like the Loas, and I had no clue what the Loas were because we don't see that as much.
We haven't seen anything big from the Loas since Wrath and Zul'Drak. So
yeah, I mean you see a lot more of that in the Horde, and it's really cool. Like I love the pilgrimage part of Nazmir. That was really cool.
I tell you what I do need to look into. I need to look into seeing where the Loa fit into the realm of gods with everything else. Because
yeah,
bear with me. We'll go get the encyclopedias. That's what we'll do. Because if I remember rightly, Chronicle 1 has the whole list of that one. Now, it talks about the nature, the gods, the wild gods and everything else, but it doesn't say where the Loa fall into this, which is interesting. So unless they count as wild gods, which would make sense because then they oppose the undead, which was in Wrath as well. But it doesn't make sense because Bon Samdir's death. So
yeah,
might be.
Or they might be Loa in priority.
For God's sake, Fraz. Warcraft puns are literally the worst. I need to look into that. I need to see where they fit on the cosmic scale.
Yeah, I'd be curious because they have a lot of power. I mean, the fact that like he could take down the entire army.
Yeah, I'd say they're on the power scale of like Cenarius, and the actual wild gods themselves, like the ones that all took place during the War of the Ancients and everything else.
Yeah,
like that. It's interesting. It's something I'm going to need to definitely look into. But are you enjoying it? Like, because I believe the end one is when you're on the boat for the Horde side, isn't it? For 8.0.
Yes, and
yeah,
I really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. It was different, and you felt like you were part of the resistance. The Alliance one felt a little bit more disjointed. This felt more unified.
In terms of the war story, or in terms of the stories over all of the the main campaign that you do while leveling?
The war story. I found it a little harder to follow for me on the Alliance. It was a little bit easier to follow on the Horde.
Yeah, it feels like Alliance strike points, doesn't it? Compared to the Horde, which is one straight story. Which I think is something we could talk about BFA in general as a whole. Like, the campaigns in Zuldazar, Nazmir, and Vol'dun seem more coherent and all together, whereas the Alliance ones, with the exception of, say, Tirisgard Sound, like, the valley is just spread out all over the place. Like, it's got one half of the valley, which is all just the main storyline in that area, and then, like, I forget the name of it. Drustvar is like, I mean, it takes you all the way through the zone, but there's still pockets of stuff which have nothing to do with the main story.
Yeah,
like,
and it adds to the story of that zone, but yeah, the bigger story.
It's weird. It's weird how they've done. It's obviously been done by like a different quest team per region. It's so very weird.
Yeah, and even like the different zones even on Horde feel a little different. Like Vol'dun feels kind of like an adventure, and Nazmir feels like you have the Loa and then you have the blood trolls and stuff like that.
Yeah, it just feels like it has a coherent story. That's the problem. Yeah. Like, you go to Vol'dun to find out what the threat is, like, and it turns out it's one of oh my god, Rastakhan's guards is like trying to build up the lizards to overthrow him. The blood trolls are rising up, and we find out, we don't know who it is, but we know that there's something, and then that leads us to actually more story. But then the whole part of Vol'dun is that we see the rising of the old god minion. We find out that the blood trolls are being manipulated by the old blood god thing, and then in Zuldazar we find out it's Zul that's manipulating all the blood trolls and the uprisings, and then in Zandalar Forever you find that it all comes together. because you've got the old god minion that breaks the last souls, all's powering the blood trolls and working with Gahoon, and it's all interwoven. Whereas we've got the story of, well, let's go unite all of the Stormsong Isles, all of the Kultirians. We'll unite them all together, and then we'll go find Jaina.
Yeah.
Like, if it made sense, like the whole point is Tirisgard Sound is about finding the fact that Ashvane's a traitor. I get that. That's good. But then maybe it would have been better to be like Drossvar would have clues about, what's happened to Jaina in exile. And then that's when, we look for more clues in Tirisgard Sound. But that's led into the Crucible of Storms and more N'Zoth stuff. And it's so disjointed.
I will say because they let you go anywhere that you want to go in all the zones, that causes some of the disjointedness. Because
I'd agree if the ability to go to Zandalar would mean that the Alliance would have seen anything to do with the story leading up to the seal being broken and the fact that we have to go fight Gahoon. All we really know about is it opens and then we've got to go fight it off as Alliance. But then, equally on the Horde side, what do they care about the Crucible of Storms? It just opens.
Exactly. And even on the Alliance, you see some of Mechagon, because it's a very small quest.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But you see Mechagon and you understand why it's opening. And overall, I think... Well, no. Do you even know about Azara in Zuldazar? Because you know about Azara doing Stormsong Valley, and you see...
the only thing we know about Azara in Zuldazar is with the 8.1 Naga attack quest. That's the only thing they know.
Okay, wow. And that's a pretty big part of the quest.
It's a big part of the quest in Stormsong Valley, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a big part of the expansion, and Horde don't even know about it.
Yeah, I mean, I assume that the idea is rumors and hearsay and everything else. But I mean, it takes us to 8.2 essentially, where we're all going to Nazjatar. Like, the sound of it is based off the dagger that they found at the end of the Crucible of Storms. Sylvanas leads the way, playing her 4D chess or however you want to do it and everything else. And the Alliance go to follow her to stop her and do everything else. Nazjatar rises from the water. Now, each of the side is going to have its own factions, but this leads into an allied race that's been found in the data files, where it's Volpira have been found. Now, as much as I would like Volpira to be the pandas of the allied race, unfortunately, I'm going to have to say that they're going to be Horde side. Like, for the most part, they're using the Goblin rigs anyway. And it would mean that the goblins get... the Horde get the alternative goblin skin, essentially, is what that means. But then what would that mean for the Alliance? Now, the faction that the Alliance are working with in Nazjatar are these new Jinyu-type folk called the Waveblade and Cohen. And even a reference is made to the fact that Jinyu are there in Pandaria. So I assume... that's going to be the faction that the Alliance is going to get.
That would make sense, because I at first thought it could be a neutral faction, because we don't yet see a pairing for the Alliance. And then my friend Leo Wild brought up a good point that the 7th Legion have been burning Volpira and capturing them, making them slaves, and that at one point the Volpira NPCs say that they owe the Horde, so they have no reason to want to go Alliance.
I tell you who I would want as an Alliance race rather than the Jinyu. I'd want the snakes.
Yes.
I think the snake model is really cool. I've argued that Draenei... I've argued for a long time, not on here, but within my own Warcraft Discords, that it's getting to the point where Warcraft, as its startup thing, needs to move away from options for what to have as your character creation into sliders. So we could, instead of just walking into the main area of the harbour on the Alliance side, and you could see Draenei, Lightforged Draenei, Night Elf. You could see a variety of sizes of Night Elves and everything else. You could see a Draenei with a short tail, a Draenei with a longer tail. You know, like the only customization really we have is hairstyles, and most of those are going to be covered up by helmet transmogs and everything else for the most part anyway, and beards, and that's about it. There's nothing really to differentiate. Now, having proper sliders and everything else would be really nice, I think.
Yeah, I think that comes down a lot to an engine problem. That the game was not.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, but that would be kind of cool. And what if, like, even like you had like an elf slider, and I could said, okay, with what you've done, you are going to be on this faction. So kind of like, what do you want to be? And your faction's decided by your decisions.
Yeah.
If you're small and you're stout, okay, do you want to be more green? You're a goblin. Do you want to be more quirky? You're a gnome.
I think there's a big difference in what you're asking for there, in where your decisions change the variety of your color. But what would be nice would be having a decision unlock a color variant that you could then go to like the barbershop and then change the color of your character, you know. But yeah. I really think that the best way to go would be to have sliders to at least, you know, heights, breasts, tails, arms, arm muscular.
I was hoping that Kotieran would be that, because we have slim Kotieran, and I mean I like the beer gut of the Kotieran, but I was hoping that we were going to get like slim Kotieran. Yeah, and I see mechagnomes being an option for gnomes, not their own race. I don't see that, but I see with the way the story goes with mechagnomes, you could decide, hey, you want to chop off an arm? There you go. You want to chop off a leg? Having
a customization option unlocked by completing a Mechagon storyline, you know, would be
really cool. Yeah, I haven't had to decide what I want to do, but I think I would like some type of augmentation. I mean, it would be kind of cool.
It would work well with what the gnome heritage armor is going to be as well, because it's got cogs and everything else on it. I've started. Yeah. I've got a couple of weapons which look nice with the old cog stuff as well. So
I'd just be terrified. I hope it wouldn't be like a one-time decision. Like, you won't ever be able to undo that arm. Because
I think it would be. What's the word I'm looking for? Barbershop type stuff. But then saying that, I went to, because I assumed that the Night Elf, Night Warrior unlocks were account wide, but because I've obviously done it on my Draenei Monk, but I haven't done it on any other character. But I can't see on my Night Elf Demon Hunter the option for the darker skin tone around the eyes or anything else. So
which would make sense. Because like the eye is a unlock per character.
Yeah. But it would be nice.
Yeah.
Like to have stuff like that account wide. Like, again, this goes back to episodes we've done ages ago about making stuff more account friendly.
Yeah. Especially with like the fact that I hate to bring up, but Fortnite. Yeah, I know it doesn't have character progression, but Fortnite you get a bunch of skins. Overwatch you get a bunch of skins. Oh,
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, and they're unlocked on your account lifetime.
Yeah. Overwatch is a better example than Fortnite, because Fortnite.
Yeah, I guess you can change your skins in between matches and everything else. I don't know. I just want more customization options, really.
Yeah.
And I don't see it being a problem that once they fix it on the front end in the character creation, to just implement those tools within the barbershop. Because that way, or they just do what Final Fantasy does, and they add in they give, when they rebring that in, they give every account, like every character has one of these items in the mail, which allows them to do one free customization. And then they just put the bottle, because they call it Fantasia in Final Fantasy. I think it's like a $5 to buy one per character off a paid customization thing. And that allows them to rejig all of their customization options as if they're on the starting screen.
Because aren't there a few decisions in WoW that you can't do in Barbershop? You have to do
There's quite a few. You can't redo quite a few things, I believe.
Yeah, so I mean, it would go along with that, and I mean, it makes sense. Those are really big changes. But of course, the barber. So if I did my Mechanome thing and I could change my hand, I can't change it back without doing one of those.
Exactly. But I mean, at the end of the day, yeah, no, absolutely. But you get everybody who would have every character that's made prior to the launch of, and you make it character bound, so obviously people can't just have a billion characters made and they get a billion and they can't just trade it between all the bits and pieces, you know. But
Yeah.
you send every character one of these bottles for free.
Yeah.
Or you do one an account or something. Like Blizzard would probably do that because it's a little bit cheaper. But then
Yeah.
you just make it a cheap you just make it a cheap microtransaction at $5. You know?
Because to me that is like your name. I mean, I think that makes sense. Your name, your race, and specific things are a big, and I think that would be a good money thing for Blizzard. I'm also thinking from the business side, because you know how many people would want to do that. I mean, I bought a few Pantheon potions. I went from a Lullafell to a higher, back to a Lullafell.
I mean, here's the thing. Like, it's cheap. Yes, there'll be probably an uproar that it's a microtransaction, but it's not outlandish. Like, I think $20 is probably going to be too much for something like that. Whereas $5, people are like, I got paid. You know, I've paid all my bills, got all my food for the month and everything else. I've got $5 spare. You know, I want to change how my character looks. Not race or faction change or anything like that. Literally just customization. And yeah, it's $5. It's done. It's not even the price of a WoW sub for a month. That's the problem I have with a lot of the microtransaction side of WoW anyway, is that it's way too expensive for what it is.
Oh yeah, even those character services. I bought some character services when they were on sale because it was much cheaper, and I held on to a race change token for over a year for the Coteran.
I think that's the problem though, because it's the problem with all the sales and bits and pieces though, because they specifically have it at a higher option to force you to do it, but then they put the sales on A, when they introduce a new allied race, or B, you know, when they want to make money, you know, and then you're used to the price of the sale one, so that when the sale, you save your money up to do it when a sale comes around.
Yeah, and that's part of the, like, in marketing, they said be careful what you put yourself on sale, because that's what you value at stuff. I mean, I know a lot of people who don't buy mounts until they're on sale in the cash shop.
Exactly.
Whereas me, like, I went crazy and bought everything.
A $5 thing is like something that's people just for an item that is just a quick usable thing, and then if they put it on sale, you can put it down to $3.50. You know, it's like 15% off. It does no harm to anybody.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's just that. We're getting more onto talking about things we want again, rather than the stories. Allied races. Horde are probably going to get Volpira at this point. I think the allied races, the Alliance is going to get Jinyu, which is very different. It's still very humanoid. It's a very sleek, very tall humanoid, but it's very different if you think about it, because Draenei, Night Elves, and humans, you know, they're all very tall, very slender, but they've got facial stuff which makes them look closer to humans as a humanoid, whereas Jinyu have those very interesting type heads to make them look not as humanoid, you know?
Yeah. And they look different enough. I mean, from a human.
Absolutely. I think what's definitely going to be noticed is that the Horde are going to need to have Volpera at Exalted, and then the Alliance will need the new faction at Exalted as well. So probably need to work on that Vol'dun rep, I think, Fraz.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I think I'm looking at doing that next, because, and it's not the first time that Blizzard has put in a new rep with an expansion or patch that for one faction, and then being like, oh, you're on the Horde? Well, all that Nightborn rep, here you go. Here's an instant.
Yeah, thankfully those were account wide though, so you could unlock those on the Alliance. But
yeah, I appreciated that, but I was still a little sour that I had to do all the work for the other stuff.
It just didn't make sense storyline wise for the Nightborn to be just straight Horde, you know?
Yeah.
They specifically made up the story so that they would go Horde just for the sake of the Horde having Night Elf models, and then we got Void Elves on the Alliance, which were essentially Blood Elf models.
Yeah. Whereas Volpyra makes sense because we have been jerks to the.
Yeah, and the Horde have worked with the Volpyra. It makes a lot of sense. I think that's why the Jinyu are more Alliance bait, because we've worked with Jinyu before. Sorry, and Cohen's in 8.2, because we've worked with Jinyu in the past in Mist. They were specifically an Alliance faction. Who knows? Maybe the Alliance will get Hosen down the line. It'd be interesting to see how that will work. I don't know what Alliance would get though. Again, I want them to get the Serpents.
Only issue with the Serpents is, have we worked with the Sethrak?
Well, they might introduce something down the line.
Okay, and because like,
but
the
then
Horde.
Yeah, absolutely. But then the natural storyline you could put in is that the Horde have got Volpyra, and the natural enemy to the Volpyra is the Sethrak.
And actually, no, I take it back. We have worked with the Sethrak. Do you remember when the Alliance went to our outpost? We helped them in the temple. So we did talk with.
So did the Horde.
people.
It's a shared storyline, that one.
Yeah.
But
so then, just like with Surmar, they could then turn it around. We're like, we worked with the Sethrak.
No, absolutely. Horde get Volpyra, the Alliance could get Sethrak. It would make sense.
Yeah.
Give me that, Blizzard. I want Sethrak.
Oh yeah.
I want my snake people because they look cool.
Yeah.
I don't want another humanoid-looking thing. I want something a bit more animalistic.
And they have legs, so we don't have to worry about. Because I know Naga will probably never happen.
Naga weren't going to happen because they had problems with the legs and the feet armor with the tail. So
8.2 though, we are getting some. Well, it's been in there for a while. Gilbin.
I think they're going to be more of a. They're going to be closer to Murlocs, where we'll never get them as an allied race. Okay,
because that would be so cool to be like. And I think they're using Gnome. No, Gilbin are using different. Yeah, you're right, because they're using all the races. Models.
If Blizzard ever hit that button, which is break in case of emergency Murloc allied race, I imagine there'll probably be Alliance, and the leader of that faction will be King Murgle Gurgle.
Yes. Oh, that would.
And the ambassador will be Murky.
You know, though, if I could then change from being Frazley to and podcast would be easy. I could just
you
like,
could
like
just
an hour.
You could be Fergal Gurgle.
Yeah. And just going for an hour and not have to edit anything.
Is your storyline just going to be that you, as a gnome, you were just always a Murloc in disguise, and you used gnomish engineering to make a voice box and everything else? Is that what that's going to be?
And I just tear off the skin like.
That's it. I remember when they introduced race changes and Worgen came in Cataclysm, because I was a human on my priest, and I race changed to Worgen, and the thing is, the storyline was that I was a Worgen, but I'd had the curse under control, and then now Worgen were in the Alliance, I was able to like show my wolfy self. So that was fun. And then I just race changed to Draenei because Sextail.
You know the other race we could get. And I'm going back into the storyline, going back to Before the Storm.
Mm-hmm.
We could get.
Are you gonna say Lightborn undead?
Yep.
I don't want them.
I don't care if you don't want them. I think they're a possibility because, again, Anduin wanted to peace with the undead. He wanted to.
I think the only way that's gonna happen is when they get them out of the Netherlight Temple, and Kalia takes them to Lordaeron, and they clean up the Blight because they're the only ones that can work within the undead type area, kind of. And they clean it up, and then they take Lordaeron for themselves.
Oh, that would be so cool because I was so sad I died to the Blight because I was trying to be like I rushed to Lordaeron after it was done, be like try to get in, and I was so excited
You died.
Yep. To the Blight.
Interesting. Is the sewer pipe still open? Could you just go through the sewer and go into underneath?
I never tried that.
Well, there you go. Something for you to check later on, isn't there?
Absolutely. I'm going to write that down. Try out the sewer pipes.
It might be something too interesting to do. I think I'm going to try and do more on my gnome in between. Because I don't want to do more rep grinding outside of World Quest Week, and I really only want to do one faction. I'm still aiming to get my Demon Hunter, since that's now my main, my Night Elf Demon Hunter, to Heart of Azeroth 50. My monk's already 50.
Okay.
I'm about halfway through 49. So I'm hoping I get it before 8.2. Now 8.2 is either going to land, I want to say, not this Wednesday after. It's either going to be two resets away or 3 resets away.
I'm hoping it's either, like, I don't want it to be the week of July 1st because I won't have good Wi-Fi that week.
You'll just have to come back to it a week after.
Oh, and all of you will, like, you'll be like, hey, I'm exalted with Mechagon, Frazley.
If you come back a week after and I'm already exalted, you can turn around to me and tell me that I have no life this game again.
Okay. Sounds good. Deal. A pinky promise.
No pinky promise. You can just do it because I'll forget.
Okay. With my short memory, I will too.
It'd be interesting. I'm looking forward to. There's so much content. It's a shame that Mechagon doesn't have its dungeon open for a couple of weeks until after the content is open. But I assume that's because it's got gear in there that's going to be above the level of, or like equal to, normal Palace of Ashara.
Yeah, and they want to give them enough time. And I mean, I think they want to give some people that are done with normal Jara, or at least pretty far. They want to give. I mean, they want to give them the gear, but they also want to give them a break from Jara. Because one thing I've noticed is people are even tired of Crucible.
I've done it on LFR, I think, just to get a quest done, but that was about it.
Yet.
Like, LFR's nothing. Like, even then I managed to just miss the first boss and went straight to Unat.
Oh, nice.
It. But I haven't done any of the 8.1 raids really, other than having to do it to just jump in, do it for story, and jump out again. I've had no investment in there.
Yeah.
So I probably should try and find a group, but those groups will become a little bit easier once 8.2's out and there's more gear, and there'll be more groups that want to just blast through it.
I'm planning to solo in 9.0.
When 9.0 rolls around, I'm hoping to be able to solo the mythic dungeons for mounts, is what I'm hoping. But that wholly depends on if the level squish actually happens, because that's a thing that's been walking around in the universe this week as well. Because there was a survey that went out about a level squish, which is going to really shake things up a bit in the terms of they've literally just rebalanced the world to scale with your level. You know?
Yeah.
I'd be fine with it if it came with certain caveats and the dungeon finder is retuned that every dungeon as you unlock it is then available to be chosen in a bracket all the way up to max level. So instead of saying the classic dungeons being unselectable from 61 plus, they'll sit there within a whole thing all on their own if you want to queue for a classic, because then you can queue with people who are leveling.
Yeah, I still go back to what you said about the Final Fantasy. You reminded me how they did their dungeon finder, and I would agree. I think that would make queues go down and would give you something to do, because I mean, I know I did Hawk Manor so many times, but I enjoyed that manor.
It's a pretty cool dungeon, to be fair. It's pretty short.
Yeah. Oh, it is.
And yeah, I don't know. There are changes that we could make, but I feel it's best suited for a different podcast rather than this one. Because is, I don't know. I'm looking forward to the story. Are you? I presume, as a gnome, you're going to concentrate a lot of your time onto Mechagon as a priority to Nazjatar, or are you going to work on both at the same time?
Both at the same time, like Mechagon first, because I need the rep of both, because flying is my biggest priority.
That is true. We do need to get revered with both, and we need to have the entire map explored on both as well.
Yeah, and that's always been ever since Legion, my priority has always been Pathfinder as soon as possible. That's why when we got part 1, I finished it. Part 2, I'll finish it because once it can fly, a lot things will, in my mind, be easier. Because right now you have flying between places. I like it when you can fly, and that's.
Leveling will indeed be a little bit easier. It's not like it's hard, but being able to fly just means that you can just travel from point A to point B a lot faster, and therefore, you get to skip half the mob packs because instead of traveling at 100% speed, you're traveling at 280 or 310, depending on how much money you want to put into flying.
Oh, I'll put all the money into flying. I'll put it all.
I've never bought Master Flying. I have it on my Priest because she had 310 mount before Master Flying was a thing, and I haven't bought it for any other character.
I have it on all the ones that can afford it.
Well, I can afford it on everything. It's just a matter of wanting to. Yeah, I think that's about it. No, we got about half hour more. Ooh, I tell you what. I'm eagerly anticipating Volume 4 Chronicle. But I fear that we're just now into recounting Warcraft stories. I'll tell you what it does want me to do. People have asked for Warcraft 4 for ages because it can create new stories.
Yeah.
Now, Blizzard are trying to find the correct media to be able to tell a different story. They do books, but they seem to limit the books to between expansions. We talked about this last week, where having the ability to have books in kind of like an extended canon so that we get these stories that happen outside of it. We need something that tells it, and I think I've been playing a game called Epic 7, which is like it's a Korean animation game, and it tells a story. But I think a mobile game where you could just have a dungeon crawler, like you can tell the story you want to tell, and it again leads into the thing of working everything out through a Blizzard app, and then you can just have a Blizzard app that does a thing that and just all works through there. Link it up to your Blizzard app and everything else. If you finish the story, you can get like a fancy title on your account that says that you've done it. But it can tell stories, and then they can introduce characters that way as well.
I like that idea, and I like having WoW something to do on the go. I mean, that's one thing that I've always wanted. I know, like when the PS4 and Xbox first came out, there were the tablet apps and the iPhone apps, and that was a lot of fun to do something on the go and have it sync up with what you're doing. And I would love to see that again.
I think it's fun. I think people just need to come up with the correct idea and sell it to Blizzard. Yeah. And then they have to obviously want to be able to do it. But more often than not, if you can turn around and be like, I've done this in my own time. I've made the engine. I've done the assets. I've got the story. Here's this. We can change the story as to whatever story you want to tell to try and get stuff in. Even if they want to tell a side story. Like, example. We talked about the Infinite Dragonflight. Okay? What if this mobile game that we do, you make it a gacha thing and everything else so you can pull your heroes on ticket banners and everything else just to increase the influence and everything else. But because you have it as an Infinite Dragonflight based story, you can do the summons as pull through time. So you can pull, gives you the excuse to be able to pull older heroes like Varian is there, and everything else.
Yeah.
But you can be like, the Infinite Dragonflight are trying to change time. And then it gives you the first dungeon you do is you go and do Dead Mines. And again, we see what would happen if Van Cleef would have won. And we see what happens if the Infinite Dragonflight... And it gives you an excuse to go and visit these dungeons in this mobile game, in Warcraft, and still tell the story. And at the end of that mobile game, or at the end of that story, like, say, Chapter 1 is all about the Infinite Dragonflight. But by the time they finish telling that story, because it's a mobile game, you have to continuously release content, it finishes halfway through, say, 9.0 expansion. And then it leaves you with like some underlying threads there. And then they just steadily release some small side content in there to keep the game going until they get to 10.0, which is then the Infinite Dragonflight expansion. And they've told the story building up to this with the characters that are going to feature heavily in that in the mobile game. So it leaves there as an option that's been there for a year, 2 years while they've been doing all this other story. And you've done it with the heroes that you've done in this mobile game. without having to try and churn a book out every so often. You have your story team working on something else that you want to get into there to build that story.
Kind of like what they're doing with Diablo Immortal. They want to tell bits and pieces of a story on the Immortal storyline, and they said it's
kind
gonna
of.
help.
We don't know what Diablo Immortal is just yet, but
Yeah,
I feel like they need to have another medium to tell a story.
oh, absolutely.
People
Like,
want Warcraft 4 because Warcraft 3 and 2 and Warcraft 1, they told a story. You know? Warcraft 3 is the reason. If you look at TBC and Wrath specifically, those two games were a lot of the reason why people who played Warcraft 3 really got hyped for those expansions, and that's why after Arthas was dead, people were like, Big Dragon? I didn't play Warcraft 1. Cut out. That's the reason we lost more people at the end of Wrath, because those were all the Warcraft 3 players.
yeah,
They witnessed the end of the storyline of Arthas and Illidan and Kael'thas and Lady Vash. You know, they'd seen the end of those storylines. There was nothing left for them to do.
and you could say that's one of the reasons why after Legion we lost a lot of people, because Legion was the end,
The culmination of the Burning Legion, absolutely, which
Yeah.
was Warcraft 2.
and we still
3.
don't know what we're doing right now with BFA. I mean, I'm not even looking at BFA's mechanic. I'm saying the BFA story. We know where it's going, but does the main player know what?
That's it,
where it's
isn't
going?
it? And I mean, I feel like there needs to be a different medium for them to be able to tell a story. Like,
Yeah.
we know that at Blizzard they have the story penned out for 2, 3, 4 expansions. However, they know where they want the story to go. They're literally they've got their line from A to B to C as it goes on, and all they're doing is filling in the A to B content for us.
Yeah.
Now, if there was a whole story, we haven't seen Anduin a lot other than the culmination of the war campaign, you know, in BFA. So between A and B, which is going to be the entirety of the length of 8.0, yeah, 8.1, 8.0 all the way to 8.1, 8.2, 8.3, 8 point whatever, before 9.0, yeah? What's to turn around and say that we have a mobile game, or Warcraft 4, which turns around and goes, this is what Anduin's dealing with. Anduin's not here. He's left Kul Tiras to Jaina, he's left it to Gen, and even Gen we haven't seen very much of. It's all been Shaw. But what happens, like, we could see that they have this story which builds into, say, why there may be a divide within Alliance leadership down the line, because we know that that's something that the writers at Blizzard want to work with, because we've seen it twice with the Horde now, and they're trying to build in that divide with the fact that there was no human, no dwarf, no gnome, no Draenei at the battle for Darkshore. So there has to be a different way to tell the story, because the story in WoW isn't doing it enough for people.
Yeah.
Having a mobile game might make it a little bit harder for some of the mainline content creators, because if it was, say, Warcraft 4, it's easy, it's on PC, they can stream it. Mobile games do require either an emulator on your PC, but it's generally going to be downgraded because it's emulated just like everything else, because it requires CPU usage, or you do what I do and you use your Elgato and you use a capture software. Where is it? This little thing here. This little thing allows me to video capture data from my phone. And I occasionally do mobile game streams with it.
Okay, I got another one. This is iOS only, and it's Mac only. So I mean, they have to work on a way to figure out with PC. But Project Catalyst is a thing that's adding into Mac, being able to port iOS devices, iOS apps to the Mac. So they have the Mac figured out, then just figure out some way to port the Android version. I mean, without emulating. I mean, it has to be a good way to port an Android version, because I mean, they did with Hearthstone in a way. I mean, I know they kind of rebuilt the game, but if they build up, I can see like what you're talking about. What if this platform wasn't just Warcraft, but it was like the whole thing the Blizzard story game, and you open up in like the tomes.
I think that they were trying to do that with Heroes. Because
Okay.
one of the big selling points that they were doing with Heroes was that it was a place where all of the Blizzard universes could collide together. That kind of span out into its own thing, where they had the Nexus having its own storyline and everything else, and you actually just had heroes from all those universes come into that game. Essentially, it became a meme where it just became, oh, so the Nexus is heaven, where all heroes and villains just die, and that's where they end up. They just end up in the Nexus. Because I think that's what they were originally trying to do, is the original story of all the Blizzard stuff coming together. Because everybody said, why hasn't Blizzard done a MOBA of all of their own stuff? You know, and it's just lying on the wayside at the moment, which is unfortunate. But then the same could be said for Hearthstone. They could quite easily do expansions in Hearthstone, which takes it... Because they've dropped the Heroes of Warcraft moniker. There's nothing to turn around and say that they can't do a StarCraft expansion. And, introduce StarCraft heroes or Diablo heroes. Because they've done a Diablo Tavern Brawl in Hearthstone. But...
Because I like the idea of, like, even if the worlds don't intermix, I like being able to tell the things in another medium. Because I was thinking, like, movies and TV shows, like a Netflix series or that takes a lot of animation work. But I'm not going to say game development's easy. But if you have a foundation, if you have like a Disney Infinity platform that you put it all into and you build off the same thing, then you can more easily put out a level that's all StarCraft, a level that's all Diablo, a level that's all Warcraft, and do what you're saying.
Absolutely. That would be interesting. A game I'd always wanted to see, because I was very big on my Musou games for a while, like Dynasty Warriors. Why couldn't we have, say, like a Warcraft Legends, where you could go back through specific points of time and you could say, you could have Arthas and Jaina in the Plaguelands fighting off hordes of undead in a Dynasty Warriors type game, and like you could just have Arthas swinging through with a hammer, Jaina with magic and everything else. Have Varian fight off waves of orcs, you know?
Yeah, and I realized what I'm envisioning is what Telltale was trying to do with their game engine. They had built a game engine and were then putting all these stories from different properties. Like you had your Tales of the Borderlands, you had your Minecraft story mode.
Absolutely.
And they had combat, so it wasn't just...
The problem is that they just used that same engine over and over.
Yeah.
All I'm proposing is, like, they could... I mean, at the moment, Blizzard's trying to find an engine that works with any new game that they want to do. They're trying to work it out in the Overwatch engine right now, which I believe is an extension of what they tried with the StarCraft 2 engine, because that's what Heroes was running off, an enhanced version of the StarCraft 2 engine, which is why it was crap for spectating and everything else.
I thought Overwatch was working off of Titan. Or no, the assets of Overwatch.
The ideas and the assets in Overwatch are working off a lot of the Titan stuff. They're trying to get games to work in what the engine they're using for Overwatch, because it's better, essentially, and it's shinier and it allows them to do a lot more, which is everything that they're trying to do.
Which explains why you have so many varied maps in Overwatch and why they even have tried Blizzard World. They're like, what if we could try to recreate Warcraft?
Kind of. I think it's more meant to be just memey on the whole Blizzard culture more than anything else. But I think they're just trying to find out they're trying to bend the uses of the Overwatch engine to see what they can do.
And I could see they could make it work. I mean, I don't know the code. I'm not. But
I think this is the problem with not being a game dev and trying to think how a game dev thinks. I think that's the problem where we sit right now.
Yeah.
But I just think they need to do another medium, and it's very difficult to do. It's very difficult to do movies or TV, because you're trying to reach an entire audience that simultaneously does play the game and wants to see more, and doesn't play the game, and you're trying to get them immersed in that universe, which is why the Warcraft film was interesting, because it was simultaneously based on the new canon from Warlords and not based on Warlords, which if you actually read the Christy Golden prequel to the film novel, it's weird as hell because it's trying to be Warcraft, but it's trying to be unique to its own thing. And it's a good read, don't get me wrong, but it's nothing like the original WoW is Warcraft canon to do with Draenor at all. It's Frostfire Ridge through and through, and it's an interesting read because it's still about Gul'dan ruining the planet with warlocks to an extent, but it's more how they're trying to find it before they move in to the new horde before they go to attack, and then that's when the beginning of the film leads with them entering the war camp. That's where it ends. It's so weird. It's such a weird book because for someone that has played Warcraft and knows the Warcraft lore and everything else going into it, it's so bizarre. But for someone that's not, you know, it's a good entry point into how those characters think and why they think that way. And it's not just a sudden they're orcs and then they turn against Gul'dan. You know, it completely changes how you think about those characters. But people who play the game and know the lore know that that's what's going to happen anyway. So the film works for people who know the game, but the book helps people that don't. So TV shows and that help to bring people in, but will always be criticized by people who know more. Whereas a video game will attract more people who already play the game because it's an extended canon universe.
Yeah, and books are harder because there's a lot of writing going involved in the books, and
they take longer to produce. Yes.
Yeah, and even consume. At least for me, it takes longer to consume a book than a game.
Absolutely. Like when I was traveling more, I was able to just sit down and read a book. But I don't travel so much, so it'll be, when do I read a book?
Yeah.
You know?
And like even audiobooks right now, I'm listening to too many podcasts, and we're producing podcasts, so we are competing with audiobooks on...
That's it. Audiobooks,
so
music.
we're the reason...
Yeah.
And so we and Britney Spears are the reason why the Warcraft books are having trouble.
Yes, that's it. But I don't know. It's going to be hard because I don't think we're going to see another Christie Golden novel between 8 and 9.0, because I think she's helping bring the in-game story up, and that's where her writing is. So I don't think they'll go back to Knack again. I think he has too much of a bad look upon from the actual community in terms of how he writes. And it's interesting because whenever they've gone outside of the shell for people who write for the series, we end up getting really bad books like Cycles of Hatred, which is really terrible.
I never read it.
You don't want to. You really don't want to. It's that bad. I don't know.
So when you think about it, do you go through Cycles of Hatred? You're like, it's like you wake up in the morning and like...
Cycles of Hatred legitimately is the only book I've picked up, put down, because it makes no sense and the story is so bad, and not gone back to it for a year until and then once you get past a certain point, you're like, well, now I need to finish it, and you just speed through it, but it's so bad. It really is so bad.
I enjoyed the Traveler series. I did not finish book 2, but I enjoyed that one.
Oh,
but that was
sorry?
more of the Warcraft Traveler. It was
I haven't
series.
read that yet.
It's definitely basic. I mean, because it's for kids, but I enjoyed it. I think the lore works pretty well with what is in the game. I mean, I could be totally wrong.
It came out around the end of Pandaria time, didn't it?
No, sometime in Legion, because they announced it at one of the BlizzCons, if I understand right.
This is when they were going out to make a lot of the kids' books and everything else, and we had that.
Yeah.
I think it was towards the end of Warlords then. I think it started because it was about Lily's travels, wasn't it? I think.
Yeah. No. The kid. It was the kid on the ship.
Oh, of course it was. Yes. Yeah. No, I remember now. Yeah. I need to get those then. I missed those for my collection. Interesting.
I enjoyed it. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think this is a good point to end it. We've talked about stuff. Story. Blizzard needs more story in their game. And
yes.
if they don't feel safe enough putting in a big thick story in World of Warcraft, then they need another medium to do it.
Exactly.
And that's when they need to decide. Really? Mr. Frazley, thank you very much for talking about stuff with me this week. For those people
Absolutely.
who don't know who you are, where can they find you on the internet?
You can find me at Frazley Testing on Twitter, and I'd say you can find my weekly podcast where I talk with different people. Like I had a certain Titans Creed on. I don't know if you've ever met them, but you can. Yeah, a certain Titans Creed, and I talked with them and got to learn more about them, and I'll have that on in the future. And for the audio listeners, Titans Creed pointing at his face and going like, me? That handsome, sexy face.
I wouldn't go that far.
I like to push boundaries a lot. But yeah, you can find that at gnomepodcast.com. I am this next week, not tomorrow, because tomorrow's will be the E3 episode, but the week after, I have this on, so I'm excited.
Ooh, that'll be interesting. Big names.
Yeah, I mean, and it's fun. Like my idols, the people that I've been looking at, and it's fun to get to know them, because I use this as my way to sit down with them and be like, who are you? What's your social security number?
We need to get famous enough so we can get Taryn Gregory and Christy Golden on it. That's what we need to do.
Oh,
we
yes!
need to get famous enough so we can talk WoW story with WoW devs. That's what I want. We want to get internet famous, Frazley. That's what we need to do.
I think on that episode you need to bring on either Ali or I don't know if I know enough lore to have Taryn or Christy on.
You need to start reading more than Fraz.
I'm editing stuff and streaming. I'm playing the game.
Audiobooks, my friend. That's where you need to get in there. I can be found on Twitter at Titans Creed, at Gaming Phoenix are my two preferential Twitter ones. Titans Creed is my personal one. Gaming Phoenix does all my gaming stuff. You can find me on youtube.com/Project Phoenix Productions. You can find me on twitch.tv/Project Phoenix Productions 5 days a week. Speaking of Twitch, I am doing my yearly charity stream on June the 22nd and 23rd. We're raising money for Special Effect. It's going to be a 2-day affair. We're going to be playing Sonic games, modern Sonic games, because we did classic Sonic last year. We did 10 hours. We raised $600 on a $500 target. This year we're doing 2 days. Saturday is going to be starting at midnight Pacific, which I think is 4 a.m. Eastern and 8 a.m. UK, with 9 a.m. Central European time. We're going to be going until we finish Sonic Adventure and Sonic Adventure 2. And then Sunday has the same start time, and it's going to be Sonic Generations, Sonic Lost World, Sonic Mania, and Sonic Forces. We're aiming to do 600 poundaroos. We have some limited edition merch up right now, actually on my Streamlabs merch site. This is limited merch. It's specific. It's only available until June the 30th. All the profits of those of that merch sold, it's a mug and 2 shirts with different logos on it. All the profits for those merch will go to Special Effect during the length of the campaign, and those are going to be out of stock on June the 30th. I think that's a big mouthful. Thank you very much for watching live, if you have done, on twitch.tv/Project Phoenix Productions. Otherwise, thank you very much for listening, if you've listened to the podcast when it goes up. And from myself and from Frazley, as he will tell you to stay awesome, we'll see you next time for more stories around Azeroth, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.